Hey y'all, it's Mary Hyatt, and I am so excited you're here for this month's topic, which is all about femininity. If you are tired of taking your cues of being a woman from diet culture, Hollywood, or the porn industry, this is going to be a great month for you. We'll be exploring the different facets of embodying your own unique femininity and create the space so that you can tap into your own feminine essence. Ooh, this is going to be decadent, y'all. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey everybody, it is Mary, and oh my freaking gosh, I am so excited about today's episode. Lindsley Brooks is in the house again, y'all.
Woo! I know you've missed me.
I really have, and I think everybody else has.
I've missed you.
It's good to have you back.
I know, it's fun being back.
And you could not be more of a perfect fit for today's conversation about femininity. We're going to take it like a whole level deeper. But before we get into that, so just to kind of recap. So last week I did the foundational episode for this month's topic of femininity. And I talked about how essentially there's all these rules that women have from society, from religion, from our families, even just like living in America or living in the South, that go into the whole brain space of creating ourselves as women. We have all these suggestions, all these expectations, all these roles that we're supposed to fulfill, all these rules we're supposed to follow. And it leaves us in a place of a lot of confusion of what it means to be a woman and to embrace our femininity. And I think we're also taught as women how to be like men. So it's just a tricky situation to try to like come to a place where we go, okay, what does it mean for me to be a woman? And so definitely go back and listen to that intro episode, The Essence of Femininity from last week. And then today, Lindsley and I are going to explore this whole concept of archetypes. Because basically what we know is that a woman is not one-dimensional. Can I get an amen?
Amen. In fact, will you read that definition that you said you found on Google about
oh my gosh.
It literally made me laugh out loud.
Yeah. Okay. So I shared this on the podcast last week about like, Googling femininity to see what would come up. And this was the first answer was the traits of a woman. The traits of femininity are nurturance, sensitivity, sweetness, supportiveness, gentleness, warmth, passivity, cooperativeness, expressiveness, modesty, humility, empathy, affection, tenderness, and being emotional, kind, helpful, devoted, and understanding.
Aww.
Oh, how sweet.
She sounds so lovely.
I mean, was that written in the 1920s? Come on now.
I mean, that's just like one facet, like you said. There's just like one little inch of what makes a woman a woman.
And not that that's not true.
No.
I mean, I don't know, the whole cooperativeness and all passivity. I mean, that just feels like patriarchy through and through. However, the parts of like being emotional, being sweet, sensitive, supportive, gentle, empathetic, like those, I mean, those are totally true.
And they're also true for men.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
It's called being a human, a good human.
I mean, well-rounded,
right.
Ultimately. Yeah. Emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Remember when we had that topic?
Yes, that was a good one.
That was so good. So, okay, Lindsley, you are, when I think about like the goddess personified, it is you.
Hey, that's the highest compliment coming from you.
I really mean that. Like, you're so radiant, you're so embodied, you're so in touch with your femininity. You've done a lot of research, a lot of deep study in this topic, a lot of work around this. Like it was funny. I actually, I didn't tell you this, but I reached out to Bethany, a mutual friend, and I said, hey, do you know of anybody that I could bring on as a guest expert to talk about femininity on the podcast? Knowing I was already having you on, you know? And she goes, Lindsley?
Oh, God, that's awesome.
And I was like, yeah, well, I'm already, bringing her on. So perfect. So all that to say is I want to just glean your wisdom from this because I am somebody who really is learning this myself. Mm-hmm. Like I'm still in the discovery of it. I've come such a long way of like operating totally out of my masculinity, burning myself out, getting adrenal fatigue, overworking, overdoing, hustling, to now where I'm like, there's got to be a better way to operate from power and sensitivity, intuition, and like magnetism. So I want to kind of start with the 3 overarching archetypes of the feminine.
Yeah.
And so how would you, in your studies, what you've learned, how would you describe those 3 types?
So it's kind of based on ages of as a woman's progression in her age. So it's the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And so it's interesting because on a bigger level, you can think, okay, well, and maiden is like pre-marriage or pre-adult. And then mother is when you're, doing the actual birthing of a child or creating something. And then the crone or the wise woman is later in life. But you can actually, on a smaller level, go through those cycles even on like a micro and a macro level.
Okay.
So like there's going to be seasons of that, and then there's long time frames of that.
Okay. So even if, like, for example, you aren't somebody who maybe is in the coronal state or whatever of your life, that you could still be experiencing
Absolutely.
that. Okay, so take us through each one of those and break it down a little bit.
Yeah, so the maiden, it's, there's a lot of, traditional terms like, the virgin or the innocent one.
Yep.
But I kind of like to think of it as when we were youthful or when we're in a time period of just kind of innocence and play, and we just want to create and we want to express ourselves. And there's almost this naivete around just how life works. And you're just in this real playful energy.
I'm so glad you brought that word up, because so this past weekend, I led a goal setting workshop, and part of what we do inside of the workshop for envisioning our future is coming up with how we want to feel for the year, those core desired feelings. And that so often we are after the feeling more than we are after the achievement of the goal.
Yeah.
So I go through this process and have people narrow down their words. And I was so surprised that one of mine that came forward was playfulness.
Yes.
That I want to feel playful, and that there's kind of this situation that happens as you mature, you lose that.
Absolutely.
And yet there's such a I don't know, like, it just feels sacred. It feels precious. It feels like important to have. I mean, you think about women who are maybe in their crone state, like in their 70s or 80s, and are so playful. Like, what's the woman, the really famous comedian who?
Oh, Lily. Are you talking about?
No. Oh my God. She's like curly hair, white hair, Q-tip.
I don't know, but I'm loving this so far. Q-tip.
Oh my God. Y'all will know. It'll hit us.
Okay.
Betty White.
Oh, Betty White.
And she is hysterical. And talk about someone who's playful.
Yes.
Even in her old age. Like, and I just think I never want to lose that sense of that maiden, of that playfulness.
Exactly.
Because obviously we have to move from that place as women. We can't just stay there forever.
That's right.
Because otherwise it's a little bit of that, like, just kind of airy-fairy, not grounded, not getting stuff done, not really maturing.
Well, the shadow side of the maiden is exactly that. She's very naive, and she ends up getting easily swayed. And there's even a tendency of even kind of like losing herself, or even being codependent, or kind of blind. And like the whole identity around the maiden might be the goddess Poseidon, where she goes into the underworld and Hades takes her and captures her.
Ooh.
And therefore she was like completely blinded to this thing that would overtake her, right? So you can't stay there is the point.
Totally.
And then, so when it's in health, though, it's like what you're saying. There's this playful energy of almost kind of just like throwing caution to the wind and being like, you know what, let's just go on a fun adventure.
I just think about being totally present.
Absolutely.
And what's interesting, and I would just encourage everybody listening to kind of think through maybe their own judgments that they have towards their own inner maiden, like the parts of ourselves that we feel like, well, we can't be that way because it's too silly, or it's too immature, or like I think about that, like if you see people that are, I don't know, in a maybe a mother kind of season of their life,
you would judge it. Look back on it as like, look how far I've come.
And I think that, like, I think what I'm getting from this is that there's a need for each of these, and we can really honor these archetypes and not just say, oh, I've moved on from that. That was like, childish.
Yeah.
But there's beautiful things that we can bring into our present from that maiden energy. I love this.
Well, and these archetypes that we're talking about is like, it definitely comes from, there's that depth psychology connection. We were just talking about the Carl Jung and the Jungarian stuff, but literally, like, when it comes to archetypes, another word that's used for it that even Carl Jung used is spirit. And so it's like, we all embody these archetypes. So it's like, just because you do leave the maiden season of your life doesn't mean it's gone.
Right.
And it's just a spirit. And like, when you want to tap back into it, it's there. You just have to ignite it and just kind of bring it back to the focal point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you move into the mother, and we'll get into that in a minute, but then you move to like the crone, like you were saying, and the crone is just the embodiment where they've actually cultivated all of it, right?
Oh, I love that.
So anyways, but yeah, then there's the mother. And the mother is interesting because you're right. Not everybody physically is going to give birth.
Right.
But there is this aspect of where you are in the nurturing season of your life.
Okay.
And there's the caretaker aspect of it. And you're establishing more of that kind of grounded energy, or you're kind of nesting, or you're building nesting. Something. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And so, if anything, there's always a shadow side to every one of these archetypes. And it could even be with the mother. There's a hard time letting go of things.
Right.
And, you think about that even in the physical sense of an empty nest syndrome, where it's like, who am I if I'm not taking care of someone? Who am I in this identity of the archetype of the mother? And then there is this almost natural, like, are they going to move into the wise old, crone or woman, or are they going to allow some of that maiden energy to come back for a new season? So it's interesting to kind of think that you've been maybe in a season of nurturing something or building something or nesting in something. And that if you're even beginning to say, hey, I want more play in my life, you may be moving into a different phase. And you just cycle through. It's not linear. That's my whole point.
Totally. It's like the stages of grief. You're not going to go from one to the next to the next. It's all kind of in there together. But I do like the idea of recognizing the accessibility of each. Like, we've been all these in different ways. And I think that this is so good because the mother, I feel like most of the people listening probably are going to identify with this one.
Sure.
I mean, that feels like maybe the largest time frame of your life that you get spent in the mother of, just like you said, serving, pleasing, making sure everybody's taken care of. And it's just a lot of external energy out.
Yes.
And I think why people are drawn to this work, and we know this because we've done it too, is it's like, let me rediscover myself. Like, yes, I love taking care of people. Yes, I love being in that mother energy. And yet there is a part of this sense of self that can get lost in that.
Absolutely. That's the shadow of it, right? Like, it's essentially losing your identity so much so that you have a hard time letting it go and allowing the fluidity and the energy and the playfulness of the other to come in, right? So, I mean, this is interesting too. I remember learning in my studies that, and I know you're going to be talking to somebody in the future maybe about our cycles as women and connections to the moon.
Yeah.
But in indigenous cultures, when people traveled as tribes, you would either identify yourself as a white moon woman or a red moon woman.
Yes.
And the white moon was the mother archetype.
Yeah.
And it was, are you in this season of taking care of others, of cooking, of tribal oriented stuff? Are you wanting to gather? Or are you in the red tent or the red moon and you're connected, and probably more so to the maiden, where it's just about creativity and play and being kind of the fire starter that gets things, parties and energy. And you know what I'm saying? So isn't it interesting? You almost had to choose on some level too. What season are you in?
What season? And I think that it's so beautiful that there's like places to put yourself in, like, and there's other women that are going through this alongside of you. And yes, I am excited because I actually have a guest coming on this month later, that we're going to get like real deep into moon cycles. So that'll be like a little teaser for you. But it's so true. And I think that I'm just having this revelation for myself that I've always been, offended is too strong of a word, but I've always had a little bit of a cringe factor with the color red for that reason of like this like real strong energy, this creative, this sort of wild. And it's like, oh, that's because I'm having a hard time integrating that part of myself inside. Yes. And I just think that that's kind of interesting too.
Very interesting.
Okay. So take us into the crone.
Yeah. So the crone, I mean, that's kind of, I hate I don't know why, but I just hate that word. Crone has kind of the negative connotation to the wise old woman or the sage.
Yeah.
And really it's the, if you get the visuals of that decrepit, brittle, older woman that's just like, she just, that sometimes they have, in fact, that's where we get that identity of the old witch,
Right.
is that when the crone or the wise woman has not allowed herself to integrate.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so that's, and then she ends up becoming that brittle, bitter, resentful, hates children, hates the maiden, right?
Oh,
you see how it
and
all
that's
is,
the shadow.
That's the shadow.
Okay.
So the wise woman is the one that has been able to integrate all the seasons and been able to integrate the maiden and the mother to where she's taken wisdom and cultivated it all. And then she's able to hold the space, and then she's able to be whoever is needed for the mother and the maiden to come to her and get. So we have that inner wise woman within ourselves though too, right?
Totally.
And so it's learning from our mistakes or having experiences that have helped cultivate this deeper wisdom within us and allowing all of our experiences to be lessons as opposed to look how I'm still pissed off about how what happened to me, know?
Well, and I'm just realizing as you're talking about this, because you've mentioned several times the idea of the sort of tribal aspect and the community. And, you think about different communities, and there's always the healer. There's always sort of the older woman who is the medicine woman, who is teaching these practices that have been handed down from generation to generation to generation. And she's teaching the younger, maidens how to do all of this stuff. And I feel like it's so sad that we as a modern society here in developing country or non-developing countries, developed, is that right? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Non-third world we don't have that. We don't have that set up for the tribe, for the community, for these groups where that lineage, that knowledge, that wisdom is getting passed down. I mean, I think the best that we have when we don't have community is to read.
Absolutely.
But if we don't have access to that, it's like, oh man, even just as a concept, if you think about the reason why I think it's difficult for us to connect with our own femininity is because we don't have the crone showing us the path, the way, the wisdom. It's like we're kind of having to figure it out by ourselves.
Well, and then think about our cultural stigma around aging.
Yes.
And how as a woman, we are not allowed to freaking age.
Yes. That's a whole other conversation.
But isn't that interesting? It's very much connected to this stigma around whatever this crone, wise, older woman energy is. And I think on some level, knowing that we have access to that, it's kind of like you and I have been told we're old souls, right?
100%.
And so there's something about even just knowing that, like, what energy feels more natural to you?
Yeah.
Do you just love kind of having some of that nurturing energy, or do you do a mixture of that wise old, soul? Like, it's just all very.
And noticing the judgments.
Totally.
Like I was saying with the maiden and for the mother and for, like, I remember when I was married, one of my friends said to me early on, she was like, oh, you're just a stay-at-home wife. Because I didn't have children, And I was so offended by that.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, like, how dare you? Because I think I was like 21 at the time and I was so super young, right?
Yeah. And
I really did miss a huge part of my maiden time because I sort of like skipped that
up fast.
and rushed into the mother and quote unquote mother, obviously without children. But I just remember like this visceral response, like, ugh, don't call me that, and just sort of understanding like, oh, where is our resistance to any of these three and what are the judgments that we have around it and how can we soften and see like, okay, what is this resistance about? What have I told myself about like if I embody this version, I won't be loved or people won't accept me or whatever it might be. Okay, so the second thing I want to talk to you about today, and I'm going to transition into this because of time's sake, because I know we're going to spend some serious time on this, and I'm so excited. For those of you who don't know this about me, I geek out about astrology, and Lindsley is one of my, well, you are my astrology buddy. You are my astrology.
You're like, what is going on today?
Literally, I'm like, what's happening in my chart? And it's gone way beyond like, oh, here's your horoscope for the day. I've just learned so much. And it's really beautiful because it really is based on this idea of the archetypes.
Yeah.
Coming from, I mean, this is ancient wisdom, right? Obviously. But there is this connection between the signs of the zodiac and the feminine archetypes.
Yeah.
And so I want to go through each of the zodiac signs and relate those to the feminine archetype, because not only are there three main archetypes.
Right.
We can break this down into 12.
Yes.
There's 12 months of the year. There's 12 zodiac signs, and there are 12 feminine archetypes. Now, we're taking this also from one teaching because I think it's important to note that depending on your research, there's
different names.
There's different names. There's different groups. Like somebody, there's 7 archetypes for women or 9 archetypes for women. But we're going to connect this to the zodiac sign. So it's kind of fun because you can self-identify. But we have all of these. Can you kind of explain the...
Yes. And so in like ancient feminine studies, like when you're talking about the tribe, when women were taught about how their own cycles and who they are as women, so everything was about learning how to integrate all aspects of these selves. And so when women sat together in circles, there was always going to be some representation of each one of these. And so knowing that like there was an honoring of the season, because I mean, the whole concept is that we are a part of nature and that as above, so below. So the whole idea is knowing that you're not separate from these things. And so when you start to learn that each season has its own energy or its own archetypal energy around it, and then they started to be able to identify constellations in the sky, and then they gave those constellations kind of personified or they gave them names, they gave them, energies or descriptors that helped identify. And so there was also some sort of a deity or some sort of like just acknowledgement for what was going on the bigger level. So that's what's kind of fun to know. Okay, if I'm in the season of winter and it just so happens to be, also the constellation of Capricorn is where the sun is right now, then we know that there's an energy or an imprint that is going on right now in just an energetic level and as far as nature. And then also it helps bring these identifications and this essence and archetypal energy within myself.
Yeah.
So I know how to honor what's going on for me and then give acknowledgement and gratitude, and also to be mindful about maybe the shadow side of what could happen in that time period for me. So it's not like there's some kind of like weird energy. It's more of just an acknowledgement and being able to identify that like, okay, we are in the season of whatever, and this is kind of what I need to be addressing right now. So with all that being said, each kind of month or each zodiac sign is connected to a feminine quality. And of course, we have gender-wise, it's like, we have masculine and feminine energy, but it is funny how these archetypes are connected a lot to goddesses or feminine energy.
Yeah.
So do you want me to just kind of go through them?
Let's do it.
Okay. So let's see, starting with like, Aries, really, because that's you start. So in the zodiac and astrology, you start with the month Aries. It's
okay.
Kind of,
and what month is that?
So that would be beginning of March, or I guess late February. I don't know. Shoot, don't put me on the spot. I gotta get my.
You need to know. Here,
I need to get my dates going.
I will tell you. It is March 21st through April 20th. Hey y'all, I'm sure you've been hearing me mention my Fully Alive Circle membership, and you might be wondering what it is and how you can join. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So the Circle membership is a safe place for women to gather together in a heart-centered community to take this deep dive into personal transformation. So it's my online membership where you'll learn how to find yourself again through daily devotional practices. Inside of our private Facebook group, I share resources like guided meditations, yoga practices, essential oil recipes, journal prompts, and so much more that dive into our monthly topic that we explore right here on the Living Fully Alive podcast. And all those resources are delivered to your inbox weekly to help you create powerful change in your life. So if you're looking for an affordable way to continue your journey of living fully alive, then definitely check out the Fully Alive Circle membership. Just go to maryhyatt.com/circle and you can find out all the details and join. All right, now back to this week's episode.
Okay, so that's warrior energy. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of exactly what we were talking about earlier. It's just that what's so funny, it's like when somebody says something about the feminine being all dainty and sensitive and nurturing, that's just the mother archetype.
Right.
But the warrior, I mean, that sometimes is associated with masculine energy, but oh my gosh, if we don't have some amazing fiery warrior energy as women.
Fire, like just that almost like energetic, independent.
Joan of Arc.
Just like power, I think about Khaleesi. If you watch
That's
Game of Thrones,
exactly right.
Like Khaleesi, she is such a helpful archetype in my brain sometimes when I need access, when I'm feeling kind of like that depressed energy. It's like there's a scene where she walks out of the fire.
Oh my God.
And she's totally naked and she's got this beautiful blonde hair, you know, and it's just like
the phoenix.
Boom.
Yes.
Totally. Phoenix like rising from the fire. And that's when I think about Aries, I think about that energy of like just this like power goddess, fire goddess.
I know. I love it. I want to be Khaleesi.
I know. And I think too, what's beautiful about this is like the courageous, the brave, the person who will go before, the enterprising, entrepreneurial, which again can get mistaken for masculine energy.
Absolutely.
But the feminine side of this, those women who just go out and make it happen.
Goals, pioneering energy.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Like, honestly, I think we even talked about this earlier, like a lot of the athlete energy, you know, that Serena Williams, you know? Okay. So then the next would be Taurus, and that's the archetype of the lover or like that kind of seductress. And it's very much connected to like Venus, the goddess Venus, or Aphrodite. And there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of seduction, creativity. I can see that would be a little bit of some of that maiden energy too, you know?
You know, it's funny because when I think of Taurus, I think of that earth energy, like more grounded, like the builder, the architect.
Sometimes that can be more Capricorn, but we'll get there. But yeah, the Taurus is very embodied. Like the season that you're in right now is so Taurus. Like you doing your embodiment practices and you tapping into your sensual side even deeper. Like that's all very senses oriented.
I love that.
You know, I think who would be a good archetype, like a personified version of that? I don't know.
Oh gosh.
Samantha from Sex and the City. No.
Ooh, yeah, totally.
Okay, and then there's Gemini, the muse. Okay, and you know that's that very creative, very smart, very cerebral, very communication focused. I think of even like maybe an Oprah or like a Lady Gaga, where you're just like you're sharing information through some sort of like expression.
Yes,
you know.
I was gonna say curious. Even like just the communicator.
Yes.
The communicator?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did I say communicator?
Communicator. I like that.
Yeah. So totally like somebody who's got to get it out of their mouth, who needs to kind of stand and preach, and they're eloquent oftentimes, that their words have power.
Very intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah. Logic. Yeah. I love it.
And then Cancer, of course, is the mother. So that's definitely the mother archetype there too. And so, you know, it's very the nurturer, the host, the tribe leader. I mean, you are very much that.
And you know what's so funny is, so I have a Cancer moon.
Yeah.
And I've resisted that for so long, you know, because again, it felt like weakness to me. It felt meek. It felt like all the things that I think about that I like kind of about women. And it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. And then yet what I've loved about learning how to embrace this is it's so connected to intuition. It's so connected to that spidey sense. You know, mothers talk about that they can hear their children crying like, from across the playground and they can't even see them. You know, it's like they know when their child's in danger. There's this beautiful ability to sense and feel, like the Cancer energy, the mother energy is very protective. It's very loyal. Like I just think I make a beautiful friend. I make a beautiful partner. Like there's so many lovely aspects about the essence of the mother that isn't about just losing her identity.
That's right.
You know, there's really this feeling, emotional aspect, which I like.
And empathy. I mean, just the deep connection to empathy. Okay. And then we've got the wild woman, Leo.
Yes.
Fire, like that big, you know, courageous, brightness. There's just like this boldness that can happen. And there's a playful energy to it as well. It's like, it's very, warm and friendly and party and that.
So this is like the person you want to have around for a party.
I'm a Leo rising. What?
They usually have a beautiful mane of hair.
And y'all know my hair.
But I think also too, like somebody who's really talented, like almost like there's a special quality, like a star quality. You're going to see, you know, hosting, like Dancing with the Stars or something like that, like in the spotlight, like ready to perform at any moment.
Exactly. And then we move into the medicine woman. So, you know, Virgo is the constellation of Virgo is connected to medicine woman. She's very exacting. She's very concise, precision, details. You know, it's like, I think of medicine woman because on some level there's this energy of like taking everything that she's gathered and knowing how to use it.
Right. There's like wisdom.
Very, very much so. So it's almost like a mixture of the crone or the, you know, wise old woman and the mother energy there, you know?
Yeah. Like very nurturing in a way of like healing, like restoring
right.
health. And I think about this, like the part of me that is connected to the essential oils.
That's right.
And to the herbs, you know, or crystals, or, you know, if you come in and you're naturally like, you just instinctively know how to heal somebody. That was when I think about Virgo, but it's precise, you know, it's like the nurse in some ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we move into Sagittarius. So we've got the explorer, the teacher, the philosopher, the part of us that is expansive and independent and seeks truth and wants to kind of just see what else is out there, you know, it's expanded mindset.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we're going out of order here with that.
Yeah, we are. Sorry.
But I think that Sag, it's like the amount of energy that Sag has is impressive to me.
Yes.
Like they're so optimistic, they're so expansive, like the part of you that just kind of can see through any obstacle and is just like willing to go find the answer, the traveler, the adventurer. I just think of like people who go out with their backpack and they're going to want to go you know, hike Mount Kilimanjaro, or they want to like get all the stamps on their passport.
Totally. And even the part of us that literally loves to learn all this stuff.
Yes.
I mean, these deep ancient mysteries and teachings and understanding how, you know, why do we have these stars up in the sky? What are all these random patterns and constellations? Why do they never change? You know, these kinds of higher
wanting
learning.
that knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah. And seeking for the truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and you're right. I did mess up. That was supposed to be Scorpio next, but whatever. Y'all are listening.
Well, and we've got listen, I'm gonna expose you right here because we got Libra and then Scorpio.
Where is it? No, Libra.
Under Virgo, Libra.
Yes.
Yeah.
7th house. Y'all don't tell anybody that I'm getting this all screwed up.
You know what it is? It's because you wrote it down on your paper wrong.
I did. I was trying to make my scratching notes. Anyways. Okay. So yeah. So you want me to do Libra or do you want me to
let's do Libra.
Okay. So the Libra is the artist, right? It's like the lover, the peacekeeper. You know what I love about Libra too is, you know, that visual of the lady in the Garden of Good and Evil, the scales.
Yes.
Where she's balancing these two things. And even when you go down to a courthouse, in any courthouse here in the States, you'll see this lady of, you know, she's got the sword in one hand and the fire in the other. So that's the Lady Libra, the lady of liberty, the lady of justice.
Totally. The diplomat.
Yes.
Yes.
And so also because everything is about what's balanced, it also has to do with beauty. Because when beauty is that's what creates beauty, is when things are in harmony or in balance, right?
Symmetry.
Yeah. So you'll see a lot of, if you're identifying with any of these archetypes because you may know your sun sign, or you may know when the sun, when I say that, I mean like wherever the sun was in that constellation when you were born.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there's the artist is Libra, very much connected to that.
I want to also just mention that you might know your sun sign, but again, what we're saying is that we have all of these aspects within us.
Yes.
And I think that that's important to note. So you might be stronger in some of these than others. You might feel even a little deficient in some of these. And I think that's important to know, like, where have you not integrated? Where have you not been able to connect with this specific archetype? Like there are some of these that you're going through and I'm like, man, I feel real distant from that. And then there's some that I'm like, oh my God, that's totally like me personified. But I think it's helpful to see this because also it can, and this is what I think is so beautiful, it can help us appreciate other women.
Absolutely.
Right? That it's like, I love that in you, like you're so Leo. Like it's funny to me that that's not your like your sun sign, but like you're so Leo to me that, and that's something that I don't have a whole lot of.
Yeah.
And so like I get to learn from you and appreciate your Leo-ness, that part of you that just shows up and is willing to be seen and has no problem being in the spotlight. Like I've had to learn how to step into that kind of confidence. And so to me, it's to remember, not only can I appreciate that in you, but to recognize I have that in me. Like it's not that I just, because I'm not a Leo, I don't have it. I actually do have that inside of me as one of the many, many sides and facets of women. I can access that.
Absolutely.
I just have to cultivate it.
And it just shows up differently for you based on what your particular chart is, because it's all archetypes, spiritual in us, you know? Okay, so then now moving on to the Scorpio, we'll go into so that's the alchemist.
Yes.
And man, this is such an interesting, there is like that healer part of it, but it's more shaman energy.
Yeah, it's almost like there's like a wild element to it, or sort of like
taboo-ness to it.
Connected to spirit, connected to the ethers. Like there's a
mystery.
Like a knowing. Yeah. And I love this one because it's a little bit of that shadow work. It's a little bit of that darkness. It's a little bit like, when I think about Scorpios are not afraid to go into the depths.
That's right. Like
they can handle the darkness. They can go in and like, look a demon in the face.
I know,
and like
right?
deal with
Intensity and passion. And there's almost a sexual energy.
I was going to say there's
too.
like a dark sexuality and and I don't mean that in an
like negative
way. I mean like a positive.
Yeah.
Like there's like it's just a deep, almost like take your fingernails and scratch somebody's back, kind of intensity.
Well, because the alchemist to me is the transmuter, right? Like it takes something and transmutes it into something else. And so there's that natural quality of like anything it gets near, it literally turns it in and like uses it for its own benefit and for the benefit of others, And
it's so necessary. I mean, we need that, especially too, like the part that is the death and the rebirth part. When I think about Scorpio, I think about that. Like, how many times in our life are we going to have to experience metaphorical death and come into a new rebirth?
Transformation and transmutation.
Yeah. If you're doing your work, this is going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
And so like to get that part of you that isn't going to be afraid, to access the Scorpio energy that can handle it, that can transmute it, that can clear out that negative energy, clear out that stagnant energy and move into something that's more light. Like it's important. We have to have the dark with the light.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why, gosh, we could have a whole conversation about unpacking each one, but it's like, that's why that October energy. And a lot of times people are so freaked out about, Halloween or whatever. It's literally a time to actually look at what needs to die and honor what's in the shadows, because literally life comes out of darkness.
Totally.
And it's like the womb, right? And is the tomb. And anyways, that's like the Khaleesi energy on a whole other level.
Totally.
The Phoenix rising.
Oh, so good.
Okay, so we already did the Sag.
Yep.
And so then moving into Capricorn.
Yes.
And that's, you identify with this one.
This is my rising.
Yeah, this is the powerhouse. To me, it is like, you talk about building something. It's laying a foundation. It's the builder. It's like legacy here. It's like it's the mountain goat, right? Where it's like the mountain goat doesn't just go straight up the side of the hill. It literally goes on the sides, up around. I mean, it's like hard work, and you put in the time and the diligence. And you, to me, are like the embodiment of that strong building something that lasts type of energy, power.
Yeah. And just sort of the willingness to do hard things.
Yeah.
Just being determined, sort of like laser focused in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And totally hardworking, which the shadow side of that is like, of course, overworking.
Absolutely.
Like workaholic, hustling, all that. When it gets stuck in the ego, you get some serious problems. But in so many ways, like when I think about pushing projects forward or building a business or whatever, like total Capricorn energy, ability to make money, all of that is so powerful. And as women, we often identify this as the masculine. As the masculine.
I know.
Only men can make money, and they're the ones who understand strategy, and they get how to put, XYZ together, and they're the builders and they're the architects. And it's like, actually women have this as well. Like, and we judge this a lot. You think about women who are really high achieving, maybe as a lawyer or as an architect or whatever in their field. They're like, the person who is top dog, and not from even an ego place. It's kind of it's a little subtle in some ways. I mean, it's just sort of quiet and doing your stuff.
Yeah.
But can be so feminine.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll look at like Marie Forleo, for example.
Totally.
She to me is the kind of archetypal energy of that for sure, as well as you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, and so then, what's funny then, that's when the Aquarius, so we've already done that with the visionary and the Aquarius. Or have
No, we haven't. We haven't talked about it.
okay, good. So yeah, then the next one is the Aquarius energy, and that is the visionary. That's the archetype of the visionary. And to me, that is like forward thinking, expansive, like something that's not been done before. Let's do it a different way.
Yeah.
And like the first person that comes to mind, even though it's a male gendered person, is like a Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, let's take something and make it better, and let's do it in a way that helps humanity, and that is about, you know, transforming the future. It's very technology driven and oriented. So, I mean, I don't know, even in like an Oprah could be definitely considered in that some of the archetype too, just because I love her and I make her in every category. But
And then Oprah again. No, but so this is my sign. This is my sun's sign. And it's like, very avant-garde in the sense of like you're just thinking outside of the box, and people oftentimes can think you're weird. Like you don't make a lot of sense for this time. But if you were to fast forward, everything that you think about makes total sense, you know, 10, 20 years from now. And I've always felt like that. I've always felt ahead of my time. That's why people would call me an old soul in a lot of ways. It was like I just would get things that people my age wouldn't get because I could see it. I mean, it's sort of like the best way, like when I close my eyes, I instantly see pictures. Like it's such a vision. Like vision to me is one of my favorite things to teach about. I just get it. I can see it. I can feel it. And so there's this beautiful piece as a woman of being the visionary.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah. And you're right, because on some level to be in the feminine energy of that, it's like, I think we're a little bit in that culture right now where the feminine visionary is the one that's creating the new world. You know, there's these feminine
Aquarian age.
Yes. And then last but not least, the mystic,
the Pisces. That's you.
That's me.
And Bentley.
That's right. And so the Pisces mystic, I mean, they are the dreamer. They're the soulful. They love the spiritual aspect of things and kind of living in that dream state. A lot of times it's connected to music or art just because it has that same kind of realm in the ethers, you know?
Fluidity.
Yeah, imagination, dreams, you know?
Yeah. And so I just think this is so fascinating because to think how reduced that we have been as women into a role, into a personification of, you know, really just either the options are mother, Madonna, virgin, you know, good girl, or the whore.
Yep.
You know, the wild one, the witch, you know, burn her at the stake, you know, and it's sort of like we've been reduced to these options.
Yeah.
And to have a moment in recognition that we are multifaceted, amazingly complex. Like literally, when I think about this, like every cell of my body gets turned on because I'm like, whoa, the power that we have as women to create, to transmute, to heal, to nurture, to build. I mean, it's just like, are you kidding me? Where did we go wrong in thinking that we were so simple, so small, so little? Like we are.
Well, and I think what happens is that we bought into that patriarchal idea of what a woman is. And so when we start to repress these sides of ourselves, the shadow side of them come out. Like we were talking about with the old crone, that bitter, brittle, resentful, rageful, manipulative, like all these controlling, critical. Yes. Like all these, or even the codependent or the passive or the having a hard time letting go.
Or the rebellious.
Exactly.
You know, screw it all, light it on flames, burn the bra.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a recklessness around it or some kind of repressed side to every single one of these positive attributes. And it's interesting to see what happens when we bought in or buy in to this patriarchal idea of how a woman is supposed to be. You can't deny who you are, so it's going to probably either be repressed or come out sideways if you aren't allowing it to flow.
Well, and that's where we get depression.
Yeah.
That's where we get anxiety. I mean, it just, you know, there's so many examples of what this looks like when it comes out sideways, addiction, all of these different things. And to know that like me and you and us as women, as whole women, whole, integrated, embodied women, to be fully alive, let's bring it back to the title of this podcast.
Absolutely.
To be fully alive includes all of these 12.
Yeah.
It's not one. It's not another. It's all of these 12. Not that we're going to have them
all at the same time.
Yeah, all lit up at one moment.
No.
But just to know that is me. Like, can we have just a moment of appreciation for woman?
Yeah.
For female.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, that's why I love what you're doing with your membership group. I mean, to me, it's like bringing women together.
Yes.
And you being the tribe mother, like what your gifting truly is. And like what you said earlier, some of us have more of these archetypes more dominant than others. And so knowing which one is your dominant and then being able to use that as your genius. And then that's what you start giving back to the world. That's your medicine to the world, right? And so for you to be doing this where you're gathering women together and teaching them these ancient, beautiful practices and these mysteries that aren't really even mysterious anymore, but we're not allowed to really learn them and know how powerful we really are.
Yeah.
And then knowing when women come together, you're able to see all the different archetypal energies, and it does create a wholeness. It's almost like a physical manifestation of what it looks like as a whole unit. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I just feel like this deep exhale of like, finally somebody gets it. I don't have to keep pretending.
Not alone. Yeah.
And try to pretend to be perfect and all. It's like, no, I've got all these beautiful, diverse pieces of who I am. Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay, good. Because it's like our soul knows this.
Absolutely.
And then yet, if we don't have the words for it or, be able to put the language behind it, it just feels confusing, or we feel like something's missing. Like that's that idea of something's always missing of me. Yeah. And this gives us some weight to going, oh, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And then there's no judgment around it too. It's like, I remember when I first got into this work and I was hearing about astrology or goddesses, and being from a Christian background, I was like, oh no, I don't want to know about all that stuff. But when you start realizing it's archetypal energy,
right?
And you start seeing, it's almost like when somebody tells their story, you can hear parts of yourself in that story.
Yes.
And then you're able to see parts of yourself you didn't even really know. It's like you were in your blind spot the whole time. When you start having a personified version of what we're talking about with this energy, you're able to go, oh my gosh, it's all connected, and that's a part of me. And there's no stigma or fear around learning about these things.
Exactly. And I mean, this is actually very much in the Christian tradition.
It is,
the hero's journey, all of this.
Even like, look, Mother Mary.
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Who would be even considered, like, I guess Mother Mary would be the mother. And then who's the old wise woman of the Bible? Sophia, the God, like the feminine aspect of God. I don't know. That's interesting.
And I just think too, like, you've got Joan of Arc. You've got all these, there's just so many different, it's all there. It's just, it's giving us some labels that we can go, okay, got it. Right. I've got that in me too. Well, girl, this was an amazing conversation.
I know.
We
so
just
fun.
very scratched the surface, and yet this is so beautiful to introduce. And I hope you guys fully enjoyed this. All right. Well, I have to just tell you, this is just the beginning. I've got so many exciting episodes coming up. And this is just like the tee off. So if you loved this, you're going to love the rest of this month, especially just the fact that we're in the season of the holidays. There's just so much of this like mystery and beauty happening right now, sacredness that's happening. It's really a beautiful time to do this. So Lindsley, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me back. I love being with you.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to see y'all next week. But until then, remember that the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. I'll see y'all then. Bye. Hey y'all, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.